So if you've been watching the NBA recently, chances are you've seen that LeBron James's accuracy just isn't what it used to be. And not so coincidentally, recently he's come out, as well as the Lakers come out, and saying that he is nursing a bout of foot soreness, which has been kind of undisclosed what exactly it is. So number one, why can foot soreness, no matter where in the foot it's coming from, cause your jump shot to go off or your accuracy to go off? Number two, is it his shoes causing the problem? And number three, is it actually hurting his career to keep playing and keep trying to play through it? And can it be causing further damage down the road? Let's get into it. So number one, what are the biomechanical reasons why when you've got a sore foot, no matter what part of the foot is causing the soreness, that your accuracy starts to go? Well, number one, it's not so much the accuracy that starts to go, it's your range, right? Because when you're used to being able to fire on two motors, right, left and right foot, and now one of them is gone, you're only firing on 50% or maybe 75%, and that one's not even firing all that evenly, right? But then once your range starts to go, you start trying to make up for it in other ways, using more of your upper body or more of the limb that isn't painful. Now that's when you start seeing some really weird arcs on the ball, or the ball just breaking off of the backboard. Now when you notice that that range is gone, you start trying to compensate, right? And that's when you start to fire harder on the limb that's not hurt, or using more of your upper body, or really trying to swing into your shot. That's usually when the ball starts to veer left or right, because you're just trying to compensate around something that is painful, right? So instead of centering yourself to the ball and to the ground, now you're centering yourself around a painful spot in your body, and that really has nothing to do with the ball or the hoop. And that's why when you have those kind of injuries and you're nursing them chronically and they're not going away, it's hard to start to groove a shot, because that pain is going to be different every time you step down on the court, right? Sometimes it might be not that bad, sometimes it might feel like a hot poker in your foot. So if you don't know what that pain's going to feel like every time, you're going to have a different jump shot every time. And as you know, in the NBA, these players have grooved their shots over year after year and thousands of shots. And then once you kind of throw a wrench into that cog, it's really hard to change your jump shot. It's really hard to change the mechanics around something that is abnormal. And as you try to keep making shots on an unstable base, your muscle memory starts to go. So you almost start to forget how you used to shoot. And now you're trying to shoot on these weird angles or by firing muscles that aren't supposed to fire at that time. And that's when the nerve receptors in your foot going up to your brain have no idea what to tell your brain to do, and that's when you start losing muscle memory. And that's usually what happens when you start to lose a shot. And the number one question I've been getting asked, and the reason I even made this video, because I've been seeing so much of it in the comments, is the LeBron 20 responsible? Now, no, not at all really, because LeBron has custom shoes made for him, right? He's not playing in the LeBron 20 that you and I can get at the store, right? His is made around his custom foot last, plus he has custom orthotics put in there. So the shoes he's wearing are perfectly molded to his foot. So to say it's the shoe is pretty baseless, because, you know, throughout his career, he plays with a lot of different shoes, even within the same season. He's using different model years of the shoe. He's using the Ambassadors, the LeBron 20, the Witnesses. So, I mean, he is using different pairs of shoes. Now, why are none of those throwing off his shot? Well, that's because the inner workings of the shoe are his exact foot shape. So it's pretty easy to get used to a shoe like that, no matter what is on the outside or what trappings are on there, when the inside is still kind of the same engine. But the biggest question is, what kind of damage could he be doing to himself by not just resting his foot? Well, there are a lot of different things that could happen as a result of this. Well, number one and most obvious is just chronic inflammation in his foot, chronic pain. And when you have chronic pain, it's going to be very hard to be able to shoot a basketball accurately, like we just talked about. But number two, it's that he could be damaging other parts of the same foot as well as the other limb. Because let's say LeBron's got chronic heel pain, right? Plantar fasciitis, bursitis, whatever, and he can't rock back on the back of his heel, right? He just can't put pressure down. Now that's a lot easier than ball of foot pain or arch pain, because he can just stay up on the balls of his foot. But if he knows that every time he comes down on his heel, or every time he rocks back and forth, try to get momentum, that his heel is going to hurt, he's going to try to stay up on the balls of his foot. Well, that could lead to chronic stress fractures in his metatarsal heads. That could lead to his bunion flaring up and getting more arthritis pain in that joint, or just jamming the joints in the mid part of his foot because he's putting so much pressure down on them. So even though a lot of basketball is played on the the balls of your foot, the heel still does do a lot of work. But number two, if the pain is in the ball of your foot, well, that's going to have implications for your foot as well as up the chain, because now you're not going to be able to push off, get up off the ground as well. Now what that's going to do is that's going to start having you rock back in the shoe. So now you're going to start having to use your midfoot and your heel to try to push off on one side versus the other side where you're still using your toes. And what that's going to start doing is jamming your knee. That can actually get you into some weird issues with your hip and some impingement syndromes in your hip. And it can also lead to lower back pain. That's why you see a lot of tennis players with lower back pain that also have ball of foot pain, because now you're jamming the kinetic chain and not allowing your body to fluidly push up off the ground. And if that pain is more on the inside of your foot, whether it be in the big toe joint or the arch, it's a lot easier to stress fracture on the outside of your foot. Because I mean, look at the size of the first metatarsal here versus the other metatarsal or the ball of your foot going toward the outside or lateral side of your foot. But by far the most common type of foot soreness I see is good old-fashioned arch soreness, whether it be in the muscle and tendons that make up the arch or just the joints and bones that make up the arch. And the reason it's so common is because when your foot comes down on the ground, whether it be for a crash landing or a stride, or when you are pushing up off the ground, those joints kind of have to lock on each other and those muscles have to tighten up every time. So no matter if you're loading the foot or unloading the foot, these joints and these muscles are taking the brunt of that trauma and force. So they're just more commonly injured because they're more commonly used. And if you've had anything similar to these chronic nagging injuries, let me know in the comments down below and kind of what you've been doing to kind of get yourself back on the court. And if you do want to take a deep dive into LeBron's foot shape and kind of the implications that his foot shape has on his game, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam and chronically injured foot. I'll see you in the next one.